Hello and welcome to our next tutorial in this series on making our game, and in this one we're going to make a scoreboard, like a functioning scoreboard. So we're going to start here on our main menu, and before what we had was we had a button, and what I've done here is I've added in a new UI element. So I've just gone to the canvas and I've gone UI add input field, and I'll just do that again here. So there's my input field, and this one here I've made the same size as the button, so it's 300 by 60, and the input field is 300 by 60. So I'm going to delete this one here because I don't need it. So I've placed my input field here, and inside that there are two pieces of text. The first one is the placeholder, and that is your name. So I could just type in name here. Now this is a piece of text that is going to sit inside the box to, hopefully trigger the player into inputting a field in here, or inputting their name. And then when they click in here, they can type, so they can type in, I don't know, Noel. Okay, so I'm going to stop the game. So that's my input field. Now, on my canvas I have no scripts, and on my button I have one script here, which we had put on before, and basically when we pressed the button we started to play the game. So we've amended that script just a little bit. So let's have a look at what we've got. So that is this script here. So we go to mono develop, and here it is. So let's have a very quick look at that. Okay, so it's changed slightly. So we've put in a variable, which is a public string called username. Now when you put that in so that we can see the username being typed in the inspector, which I'll go back to in a second. And then it says update username. So this string username is name. So I've got my game object here. .get component input field .text. So I've said there's a game object called name, and then down here I'm saying into this username here put the content of the input field on that object. And then down here I'm saying when I press the button, so we've set this up already, when I press the button load scene level 1, but before you do that, player preferences set string username is username. So this one here. So we've just made this up. We could call this anything we wanted. And this is basically going to be a variable that's saved into player preferences, and it is something that will last even if the game is exited and you come back to it next week or next month. So this is permanent data. I think they refer to it as it's a persistent variable. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So you've got an object. In this case, our object, so we've put the script on the button, but the object that we're interested in is the input field. So we've dropped the input field in here. So this is what's in here. So when I go back to this script, so this is the input field. So we're saying get the text from the input field, which is on this object here, and then you've got that text is going to be username. So the text that we enter here will be this, and then that will be saved into our string, into our username string. Okay, so basically what that means is when we play this game here, if we type in a name, so if I type in Biffy, you can see that it comes in here as a username. So if I put in Biffy1, you'll see it update here automatically. So we can, we don't really need that in the inspector, but just so you can see, as I update this field here, it is registered in this script and then when I click this button, play game, I'm going to run the function play game, and as part of that function I'm going to save this into my user preferences. Okay, now the one thing to remember with this is, and this is a very important little bit of information, which is every time we play the game there's only one person playing the game. So if the last time the game was played somebody called Bob played the game, Bob their name would be remembered. But when we play the game for a new time, if somebody else comes along and their name is, I don't know, Paul, that string Paul will overwrite what's already there. So if Bob's name was saved, it'll be overwritten. So when we set string, it's going to overwrite whatever is in that variable. So if you don't want to do that, if you want to keep other names, then we got to think of a better way to do that, and we're going to look at that in a moment. So we're going to go to level 1 and have a quick look. So we'll save this here, and on level 1 pretty much the level is the same as it was, except I've added in extra bubbles for us to hit, and that'll become apparent why in a moment. And then if I go to my character control script, the character control script has only one extra amendment, and at the moment I've said if my score equals 5. So I'm going to up that to 6. And again, that'll hopefully become apparent in a moment. So I'll go hit save, and now I'm going to go to this script here. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to ScoreBoard, and we're going to look at our scoreboard here. So when I press play on this level here, you're going to see that it says Sean has a score of 5, Ross has a score of 4, and Noel has a score of 3. And that's because in the player script that we just looked at before I changed it, it had said if score is bigger than or equal to 5. So when the last time I played the game, I got a score of 5, and all of these scores were changed. And now I'm going to say if I get a score of 6. So when I get a score of 6, what I want, so whatever name I put in, let's say I put in Biffy as my username, I want Biffy up here and the number 6, because that's my new score. But I want Sean to go down here to be Ross, to replace Ross, and Sean's score of 5 to replace the 4. I want Ross's score of Ross's name to replace Noel, and Ross's score of 4 to replace that 3. So that's what we want to happen. So let's play the game and see if that happens. So we're going to try and knock Noel off the scoreboard here, have Ross in 3rd place, Sean in 2nd place, and then our new username, which we'll put in as Biffy. We'll have that. Hopefully, will be our new scoreboard. So let's do that. So let's go play game. I'm going to type in my name here. So I'm going to type in Biffy, B-I-F-E, and then I'm going to hit play game. And now I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to get a score of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And you can see Noel has disappeared off the scoreboard. Ross has now got a score of 4 and is in 3rd place. Sean, score of 5, and then my new high score of 6 has gone to the top of my leaderboard or my scoreboard. Okay, so let's have a look at how we did that. And it's all in this script here. And it looks messy, and I suppose it is messy in some respects, but it's also hopefully not too crazy. So this is it here, and we've got a set of variables. So let's just address these variables first. So there are 6 pieces of text that I need to write on the scoreboard. So what are they? So they are these 6. So I need to have so if I hit name here, I should probably put in name. So this piece of text needs to change. This piece of text needs to change. And this piece of text needs to change. And it's going to be replaced by a name. and then the score is going to be replaced by the score. So when I press play here, we get Biffy Sean Ross 654. Okay, now okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at how the script works. So the variables are basically the bits of text. So if we go, actually just very quickly, we jump back into Unity. So if I go to ScoreBoard here where the script is, you can see that I've basically, so I've put the script here, and then each of these six text objects, I've dragged each one into the field. And that's basically when in the script, when it says, you know, change the high score, it'll change this one, change the second place score, this one, the third place score, this one, first place name, second place name, third place name. So we have a piece of text to reference. Okay, and now let's have a look at how this works. So it's basically three if statements, because there's three possibilities. Now if you wanted a scoreboard that had 10 possibilities, this will start to get very, very long to do it this way. So I'm saying if my score, which is the score in my game, is bigger than the score currently in first place, then I am now in first place. So I need to replace the three scores on the scoreboard, but I have to do them in a particular order. If I replace this one with the score first, I want you to think about that as we look at the scoreboard. And this is fairly basic logic, but if I replace this score here, and now it doesn't exist, say it was 5 and I've replaced it with my score of 6, I no longer have that number to put in here. So I have to move them down first. So I have to say, take score number 2 and put it down here, take what was the first score and put it here, and now take my new top score and put it in the top slot. Otherwise the data is lost. So there's a very particular order you have to do this in. So you have to kind of do it backwards. So you have to replace third place, then replace second place, and then install first place. So set the third place score to be the second place score. Set the second place score to be the first place score. And then finally replace the first place score with my score. And then we're just doing the same thing with the names. So we're saying the third place name becomes the second place name because it's moved down. Same with these two. And then the first place name becomes my username. Now where did I get that username from? Well, if you remember here, this is what we typed in the initial input field. So when we logged into the game or we started the game, we put in our username, and that's what's going to go straight into the scoreboard. Now that if statement is only true if our score is higher than the first score. Now here what we've said is if the score is smaller than the first score but is bigger than the second score, so basically we're in second place now, then we only need to replace two things. We need to replace third place with second place, and then second place with our new score, and the same with the names. And then if our current score is smaller than the second place score but higher than the third place score, then we're just replacing the third place score and the third place name. So it gets simpler as your score diminishes in importance. And then finally, after we've done all them, then we need to tell tell Unity to what to populate into each one of these text fields. And that is literally, so the highest score is the player pref, that's first. The second score is second, third, and name 1, 2, 3 correspond to player pref name 1, 2, and 3. And this all sits in void start, because this is not an interactive scoreboard. We're just literally recalling the information as it's stored. So it's just done on void start. It doesn't need to run an update. Now, so that's how it works. It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's maybe slightly confusing, but in terms of there's a lot of repeated instructions, but the logic of it is quite simple. So there's one thing I've omitted from this, and this is what I would like you to do in class rather than just copy and paste what I give you. This here has no facility in it to deal with equal scores. So this is if my score is higher than the first place score, do this. If my score is higher than the second place, do this, etc. So what I would like you to do in class is to add into this the sort of the permutation of not only if I'm greater than but also equal to. So what happens if my score is equal to first place? What do you want the script to do? Do you want to keep both first scores, or do I put the original first score into second place, or what would you do in that instance here? So yeah, hopefully you guys will work that out in class. Alright, so that's enough for now.